Hello everyone and welcome back to Game Day U. I am Tyler DeLuca and I'm joined here today with the Maya Ward. Maya, how are you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm excited. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We're back here in Gaylord College Library to film. We're back home from Kansas City. It was a great time, but it feels good to be back. I'm here to talk some women's basketball with the Maya, but first, let's send it over to head coach Sherry Cole to hear her thoughts about the game.
What they've done this year has been nothing short of remarkable. The stoppages in play, the low numbers, the perseverance that they have shown. I just told them in the locker room, they got what they played for. Why do you play? You play because you love it. You play because you love each other. You play to learn. You play to grow. They got what they played for.
All right, we just heard from head coach Sherry Cole about her thoughts from the game against Oklahoma State. Amaya, what was your biggest takeaway from the game?
My biggest takeaway versus Oklahoma State was the Sooners did really well at maintaining their stamina. I mean, with limited numbers, you get wiped out quickly, and the Sooners have really established a way to maintain their stamina and hustle throughout the entire game. When they played OSU, I mean, they kept that lead against OSU the entire game up until the fourth quarter, not to mention they forced OSU into overtime. So I was overall very impressed on how well they were able to keep up with OSU, and OSU has some big girls. And, the Sooners are a smaller team, and so they have to work double as hard as OSU, and they were still able to keep that lead against OSU until overtime. And so I was overall very impressed on how well they maintained their stamina and kept up the entire game.
Oh yeah, no, I agree completely. My biggest key to the game is going to be turnovers, both good and bad. I'm a positive guy. I'm gonna start with the good. The Sooners did a great job of forcing turnovers. They forced OSU to commit 19 turnovers with 14 steals. That is a very, very good stat. That shows how active the hands were of the Sooners the entire game. And it showed, as your guards, you would think perimeter defense is going to be your type of thing. You're down low, getting near the ball. So it's good to see that you're taking advantage of that size, even though it's obviously, as you said, a disadvantage with the height that OSU had, with Natasha Mack. But on the bad side, apparently the Sooners did not watch the show last week, because my biggest key to their postseason success was efficient ball movement, and a big part of that was the assist-to-turnover ratio. On the game, they had 12 assists with 18 turnovers. That is just you can't do that, and it leads to a loss, especially in a close game. You talked about how it was. I mean, we were leading until up until the fourth quarter, and then into overtime. The Sooners lost the game due to losing the ball. If you were able to keep the possession more, you got to think in a close game like that, you're able to just get one more point. It is so close in an overtime type thing, and they did worse than their season average. Usually it's 14 assists to 15 turnovers, and they did worse, and it lost them this game, and unfortunately ended their season. But looking back on this season, what was your favorite moment?
My favorite moment was definitely our win against Texas. Texas came home and visited the Sooners, and the Sooners did lose to Texas. And so I think that when the Sooners went to Austin, they had revenge on their minds, and they played really well against Texas, who one had the home court advantage, and two had Charlie Collier, who we all know is going to go in the first round of the WNBA. And I mean, that was the Sooners' first win since 2013, and just watching them celebrate was just awesome. And I mean, who doesn't love a good win against Texas?
Oh yeah, it's really hard to beat a Red River rivalry win. But for me, I'm going to go with a more personal, singular individual achievement. I'm going to go Maddie Williams dropping 45 on the head of West Virginia. Across the board, it was an incredible performance. You saw everything that makes Maddie Williams such an efficient and incredible scorer. You saw her taking it in the mid-range and in the layups. That's what we know her for. But then she was hitting three-pointers. She was hitting free throws. She was getting to the line and showing every facet of her scoring ability as a three-level scorer. And what made it even just a little bit cooler was the fact that who held the record previously? Former player and now assistant coach Courtney Paris held the record with 43 in 2006. So being able to say that your player was the one that broke that record must have been absolutely incredible for Courtney Paris to say. And the performance as a whole for Maddie Williams was insane. She accounted for over 60% of the Sooners scoring on the game against West Virginia, which is unheard of. That is just absolutely ridiculous.
That's insane.
And I mean, quite frankly, unfair. The Sooners ended up losing this game to West Virginia, and obviously, it doesn't feel the same without a win, but it was extremely hard to dampen such an incredible individual performance by Maddie Williams as a whole. So I just said, their season was over. It's a sad thing to see. Do you think that they should have been in one of the postseason tournaments?
Honestly, Tyler, I do not. I just do not think that their resume was as stacked as it needed to be, especially compared to the other teams. I think that the Sooners would have been a very low seed, and they would have faced higher seed teams, and they just were not ready for that. And I don't think they were going to be able to handle it with such limited numbers.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't think they should have been in the main NCAA tournament, but I think the NIT was absolutely a possibility for them. Because if you look across the board for the NIT, there's just some teams that don't impress me nearly as much as the Sooners did on the season. The Sooners came out at 500 on the season, and obviously that's not fantastic by any means. By no means they were the best team in the nation. But if you compare them to other NIT teams, 500 is not that bad. You saw both Creighton and Missouri made the NIT field and have records under 500. So that's already two teams that I would put them in front of. And now you look at the circumstances that OU played with. We talked about the Sooner Six a lot on this show. And every program has been impacted by COVID in some way. But the Sooners just had it completely different. Like there was a level of harshness that they had it that you can't really compare. So I feel like not only do you take into account the fact they made it to 500, but how they made it there. They stayed afloat knowing that their players, they had the limited numbers, the limited size in every facet. So I think that you could have easily put them in over those two 500 teams and even possibly some of the teams that were 500. There were several in the field from these Power 5 conferences that didn't have to face not only the teams that the Sooners face in the Big 12, but the circumstances with the lack of players, lack of size that the Sooners face. So I think that absolutely that if they made the NCAA tournament, one, I don't think they should have, and two, they would have been a very, very low seed and probably gotten beat by a 1 or 2 going into it. Mm-hmm. But I think that they should have made the NIT, and honestly, I think they could have made a run. I think that with the scoring ability, scoring comes true in March, and you have players like Taylor Robertson and Matty Williams. That's when Hooper's hoop is March. And when you get into that bracket, postseason basketball is completely different. And when you're able to go and get a bucket, that is a huge thing. And I think that they should have made the NIT tournament and could have made some noise. But when we come back, we're going to talk the March Madness tournament, the big 64 bracket, but we're going to talk Big 12 in it, so stick around. Hello everyone and welcome back to Game Day U. I'm Tyler Lucas, still joined by Maya Ward. We're ready to talk some more national-based basketball with the Big 12 entering the national tournament. Who is going to be your Big 12 player to watch?
My Big 12 player to watch is going to be Oklahoma State's Natasha Mack. She's their 6'4" center, and her story is a little unique. She was once the top junior college player in the nation. I mean, her wingspan and release allow her to rise and shoot over pretty much any defender. She has one of the highest block rates at 10% in the nation. She's ranked 20. And that's not because of her ability, that's not because she's bigger. And she has the ability to anticipate and disrupt on defense and offense. She is the WNBA first round prospect, but she also has one more year of eligibility at OSU. And so I don't think she can go wrong with either decision, and I definitely think she's going to be one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone watched the show last week, everyone knows I'm a huge Natasha Mack fan. I can only imagine if she's doing this in the Big 12, what she was doing in the JUCO ranks. That sounds bad. But let's take it to another way. I feel like if you're going to talk Big 12 player to watch, you have to talk about the Big 12 team to watch, and that is obviously the Baylor Lady Bears. So I'm going to go with NaLyssa Smith. I think that she is the absolute heart, the soul of this Baylor team, and it's only logical. Smith is averaging close to a double-double with 19 points and 9 rebounds on the season. She's coming off a strong Big 12 tournament showing where she scored over 20 points in 2 out of the 3 tournament games Baylor played in. Smith is a really unique player in the women's basketball sphere. Her ability to run both run the floor and get up for boards and putbacks is really incredible. You don't really see players, getting like alley-oop sets run for them, but you see it with NaLyssa Smith, which is absolutely, it's fun to watch, and she's extremely talented and productive as well. Often you see Smith tipping passes and coming up with blocks as well. The hustle is unmatched. You're going to be very hard to find someone that is always involved in the game like NaLyssa Smith on not only just in the Big 12, but really across the board. She is so productive and is always around the ball and involved in some type of way. So seeing a player that engaged with that much athleticism and hustle is always fun to watch and absolutely should be the player to watch from the Big 12 coming into this tournament. But now talking kind of more broadly about the Big 12, do you feel like they were seeded correctly in this national tournament?
Honestly, I do feel like they were seeded correctly. I mean, Baylor, of course, is a number 2 seed. They were last year's national champions, and I think with them winning the Big 12 conference, like a number 2 seed for Baylor was just a given. West Virginia is the number 4 seed, and they lost to Baylor in the Big 12 conference, but they've also been ranked number 17 in the AP top 25. For Texas, Iowa State, and OSU, I think that the committee took in pretty much everything they needed to consider when seeding these teams, and I honestly do agree with the way they went about it.
Yeah, I actually agree wholeheartedly with you. I think that each seed is pretty much correct, give or take, 1 or 2 spots. I generally agree. It's really fun, to harp on selection committees and make fun of them, but I think they got it right. Baylor as a 2 seed is absolutely fair. They have destroyed their competition throughout conference play, but don't really have that signature out-of-conference win that you see from a lot of these really big schools like UConn, South Carolina, things like that. The only tough out-of-conference game that they did play was against Arkansas, and they lost that game. So it makes sense for them to be the 2 seed. I feel like a 1 seed would have been extremely generous for them, but the 2 seed kind of feels just right. And for the rest of the Big 12, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Iowa State, I kind of feel basically the same. I think that they earned their spots. And what I mean by that is that they have the talent. All these teams have players that can really score the ball. Charlie Collier and Natasha Mack are probably going to be top 5 picks, assuming that Natasha Mack does declare for the WNBA draft. So they have the talent, but that's why we play the games, because it matters about the results of the games. And frankly, that they have been shooting themselves in the foot throughout conference play, beating each other, and and maybe that's a testament to how tough the Big 12 is. And I think that these teams are better than the seedings that they got, but the seedings are the ones that they earned based on the results of the game. So while I think that they might be more talented than the levels that they got in the bracket, I don't think that they earned anything higher than that. So out of these Big 12 teams, though, who do you think is the most likely to make a run in the tournament?
I'm going to go with OSU. They have had such an impressive season. I mean, since 2018, which is the last time they were in the NCAA tournament, I think that they have improved so well. They are coached by Jim Little, who was just the Big 12 best coach. So what better coach to have in this tournament than the best coach in your conference? I mean, with the help of Natasha Mack, who's averaging a double-double, and even junior guard Jimmy Ashbury, who's averaging 17 points. I think that their win against Wake Forest will start them off with a good momentum that will keep them up throughout the entire tournament.
I love the pick. It's bold. They haven't beaten a 1 seed then. That's
right.
bold, but I like it. I'm a Natasha Mack fan. I really enjoy that pick. I'm going to go with West Virginia, though. I can see them making it all the way to the Sweet 16. They have a really great 1-2 punch in Kaiser Gondrzak and Esmery Martinez that allows them to attack defenses both high and low. Gondrzak has a scoring ability to take over a game, averaging 20 points on the season. My only concern with her is the efficiency that she gets those points with. Throughout the regular season, her scoring total is normally the win condition for the Mountaineers. I understand that shooters shoot, but if you're shooting 25%, that's not going to get you a win in the winner-go-home situation. That is a very dangerous game to play. But Esme Martinez is also a huge part of this West Virginia team, because if she's able to continue getting the rebounds that she's been able to get throughout this season and work as that 2 to the 1-2 punch to Kaiser Gondrzak, it'll be huge. She's averaging nearly 12 rebounds per game on top of 13.6 points. So if they're able to keep that momentum going, and I think that they can absolutely make a run to the Sweet 16, where I think that they lose to South Carolina. I'm not picking a number 1 seed upset here, but I actually see them making it to the Sweet 16. I think that if they build that momentum, they can give South Carolina a run for their money in that area of the bracket for sure. And now before we go to break, let's send it over to Dylan Rivera for top 5 plays.
Lots of last-second shots, and we start on the women's side. Louisville and NC State. Reina Perez fakes like she's going to dish the ball and clears up enough room for the game-winning jumper. 58-56. Give the Lady Wolfpack the lead. Crossover. Stop. Fake. Pull up. Cash. And just like that, NC State is the ACC champion. Syracuse send Florida State. Final seconds of the third quarter, and how about Emily Angsler from miles away? Yes, ma'am! The coach with the fun glasses turns into the ultimate hype man. Look at it again. The steal, the run out, and the half-court shot is good. Those points would prove to be crucial as Syracuse only squeaked out a 68-67 win. The dominant Lady Terrapins versus Nebraska. Sam Hybe has the ball up near the logo when she loses control and has to fire away. Banks open and Indy. Hybe from way, way, way outside kisses it off the glass for 3. Maryland would still find a win in this one, 83-73. Clemson, Notre Dame, fourth quarter, close game. Shot clock counting down and Kendall Spray flips it up and in. Whole team's fired up. Step back, one-legged 3 with the defense in her face, and she still finds a way to get it to fall. Ball's out of her hands in time, and it turns out the bank's open in Greensboro too. Clemson secures the 68-63 victory. And the top play from Gonzaga and BYU. The Zags only have a split second to get a shot up. Jill Townsend comes off the screen and lets it fly, and she drains it! West Coast Conference champions! That is, if she got it up in time. Up and in before the buzzer, and that's ball game. Townsend said after the game she couldn't even see the rim with 6'7" Sarah Hampson in the way. This is a blind game winner, ladies and gentlemen. That's the top 5 from conference tournament play. Tyler, back to you and Amaya.
All right, we're going to send it to break, but make sure that you stick around because when we come back, we're talking national scale. We're talking the entire 64-team bracket. Stick around. Welcome back to Gameday U. I'm Tyler Luke, and I'm still here with the Maya Award. And with March Madness starting up, it's time to start filling out your brackets. And us here at Gameday U, we're gonna have a little bit of a competition as the tournament goes on. With each game that we get correct, we are going to be receiving a point. And at the end of it, whoever has the most points between me, Amaya, and Grace will be the winner of the Gameday U tournament challenge. But make sure you play at home. Fill out your bracket, keep track on your own, and see if you can beat the experts here at Gameday U. But as you're filling out your bracket, Amaya, what is that one matchup that you have your eye on that you really want to see?
I really want to see a matchup with North Carolina State and A&M. There was a huge toss-up between these two teams about which one was going to get that #1 seed spot, and North Carolina State took that spot. And I think that it would just be such a game to see Elisa Kane, who's averaging 15 points and 8 rebounds, she's 6'5", their center, and she would be going against A&M's Sierra Johnson, who is 6'4", averaging 10 points and 7 rebounds, who is also the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year. I think it would be so cool to see those two down in the paint against each other, and I also think that A&M versus North Carolina State will show if the committee did do a good job at picking North Carolina State as the #1 seed.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think that post matchup would be so much fun to watch, but I'm going to go a little bit earlier in the tournament. Give me UConn versus Iowa. I want to see the freshman phenoms face off. All year, people have been carrying Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark due to them both being the freshman phenoms at the guard position this year. I would love to see them match up on the court so we can get the first of what I assume will be many matchups, whether it's in the college ranks or the WNBA. I think this is going to be something that you see a lot of because they are two incredible, incredible players. And I don't think Caitlin Clark has really gotten the love that she deserved this season, and especially compared to Beckers, because Beckers has that brand of being a UConn Husky behind her. But Iowa, isn't, they've had their share of good players that come through, but they're not UConn. Really no one is UConn in the women's basketball ranks. So seeing Caitlin Clark, hopefully get on this national stage and being built up as the freshman versus freshman, superstar versus superstar matchup that it deserves to be played up as, I would love to see it. I think the hype would be incredible, and it'll be interesting to see what Caitlin Clark can do because Caitlin Clark can take over a game. She's averaging 27 points a game. 27. Wow. That is absolutely disgusting. And when it comes to March, sometimes you just need to be able to get a bucket. And there's no person better in this entire nation at getting a bucket than Caitlin Clark. So she's able to take this game over. Not only do I think that she can possibly prove herself as the #1 freshman in the entire nation, I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa upset UConn here at all. That would not surprise me in the slightest. And I think that if Caitlin Clark is able to do that, you could become a household name overnight. And I would love to see this matchup. But now, kind of talking about, I talked about 1 seed, you talked about 1 seed. Which 1 seed has the toughest way to the Final Four?
I'm going to go with South Carolina. I mean, they arguably played the toughest schedule while participating in the toughest league, and so I think with Aaliyah Boston and Zia Cook, they will be able to make their way through the tournament, but those two players are not going to determine their way through the tournament. I think that they are going to have to face Oregon State and Florida State, which I don't think will be a problem. But when it comes to whoever they play after that, I think that they will definitely have to work as a team and get through to make it to the semifinals. I mean, they have been ranked top 5 all season except one. So I do think that South Carolina is going into the tournament with a lot of pressure on their backs, and I think that they have to be able to maintain that they can still play these tough teams.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, there's a lot of pressure on the back of South Carolina right now, but I think they're out of conference schedule. I mean, and the SEC being the best conference in the nation, there's no better team prepared to face that tough of a bracket going forward than the South Carolina Gamecocks for sure. But I'm going to go with Stanford as my team that has the toughest road to the Final Four. Looking at step by step, through the rounds, who I think they're going to play. They start off with Utah Valley. I think they'll be okay, facing Utah Valley. But you never know, March. You never know. And then you go to round of 32 and you get a big step up. When I expect them to take on Natasha Mack and the Oklahoma State Cowgirls, who we've talked about on this show. I talked about last week a lot. I love Natasha Mack and this Cowgirls team a lot. I don't think they'll beat Stanford, but that is a very big step up from Utah Valley to go against Natasha Mack, who is a superstar in this nation across the bracket as a whole. And when you take that next step, and going after that from Stanford is Arkansas, who I think they'll play Arkansas, who has already upset UConn and Baylor and played A&M and South Carolina extremely close in all their games this season. That is a team that can genuinely upset them. And I would not be surprised. I might even pick them in a coin flip type thing. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see that. And then if they're able to somehow get past those two, I mean, they're going through a ringer. Because if they get past that, on the other side of the bracket, you have either Louisville or Georgia more than likely waiting for you, the 2 and 3 seed. And Louisville, is almost a 1 seed. They went back and forth a lot with NC State as well. Basically whoever won the ACC was, going to be the one to do that. And NC State were able to pull it out, get that overall number 1 seed. But Louisville was there the entire time, neck and neck with them, and fighting for that seed. And then Georgia, we just saw them in the SEC tournament. They upset Texas A&M. And so no one is safe in this bracket right now, especially in March in general. But I just think Stanford has it so much tougher because no matter what round you're playing in after Utah Valley, you're playing against someone with either upsets in the past or star power to try and propel them to a big, big upset. So Stanford is going to be on upset alert for me the entire tournament, the entire time. So now, talking about 1 seed, staying with it, UConn, Gino Auriemma just tested positive for COVID. How big of a deal do you think that is for the UConn Huskies?
Honestly, I think that the UConn Huskies are going to handle business. This is not their first time without their coach. I mean, assistant coach Chris Daly has stepped in before and has gotten wins with the girls without Coach Gio. And so I think that the girls will be perfectly fine. And with Paige Buckers and with the help of 3 juniors, Olivia Nelson, Kristen Williams, and Avina Westbrook, that's right there, experienced players and an experienced coach. And I think that all they have to do is win these first 2 games, and they will do that with no problem, and then their coach will be right back.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I mean, Chris Daly is a Hall of Famer. She's in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. She's been with Gino since 1985 when they started at UConn and started building this powerhouse. UConn was not always this way, but she played a huge part in it. She's undefeated in the games that she's had to play, coach in for him. Honestly, I could probably coach the UConn team past these 2 games because they're just that good. So I see no problems with them at all. But now, we talked 1 seeds. Let's talk the other side of it. Cinderellas. Who is going to be your Cinderella story in this tournament?
My Cinderella story is Washington State. Although they do have a 12-11 record, I mean, they had some really impressive wins under their belt. They started their season against Arizona, who is a number 3 seed. They have wins over Oregon State and UCLA, who are both in the tournament. And I think that if they play well enough on both ends to win multiple games and pull those 2 upsets, I think that they are going to have a really big surprise for the other teams that they will face, and I'm really excited to see how they play.
Yeah, for me, my pick is going to be Rutgers. You know, if we make fun of Rutgers a lot in other sports, but they're legit. And, you know, it's kind of hard to get a read on them because of COVID cancellations earlier in the season. But they finished the season 14-4 in a solid Big Ten conference and finished third in the regular season conference rankings. They have a dynamic scoring duo in Arella Garantes and Diamond Johnson that can take over any game. And I think that if they're able to get rolling, then Rutgers has a chance to be one of the best Cinderella stories that we've seen in a while on this season. And that's going to do it for us here at Gameday U. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check us out on all the socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, because we are everywhere. And make sure to tune back again next week as we talk NCAA tournament and our brackets. See you then.